සුපිරි අධිවේගයක් පරදා ඔබ මවිත කරවන වේගයක් විඳ ගන්න. පියවර 3කින් ශ්‍රී ලංකා ටෙලිකොම් ෆයිබර් ඔප්ටික් ජාලයට එක්වන්න. slp.lk වෙත පිවිසෙන්න.
Making headlines on First at 9. End of a struggle. The 4-day railway strike called off following discussions with the president. Iran sanctions. Will Sri Lankan oil prices be affected if Iran's oil exports get sanctions from the US? Return of democracy. The Prime Minister insists that freedom violated under the previous regime are now re-established. Mission to the Sun. NASA launches a solar probe which is set to unravel mysteries of the Sun. A very good evening to you and welcome to First at 9, another Derana 24/7 Sri Lanka's news channel. I'm Katharina Chang. Now on to your top story tonight. Pharmaceutical group Bayer dismisses claims that widely used ingredient in weed killer glyphosate is carcinogenic. The German company, which owns agriculture giant Monsanto, says herbicides containing glyphosate are safe. However, various international bodies such as the International Agency for Research on Cancer, the World Health Organization's Cancer Agency thinks otherwise. In a landmark case on Friday, Monsanto was ordered to pay $289 million in damages to a man who claimed the product caused his cancer, and his doctor says unlikely to live past 2020.
San Francisco jurors just ruled that Roundup, the most popular weed killer in the world, gave a former school groundskeeper, Dwayne Johnson, terminal cancer. So they awarded him $289 million in damages, mostly to punish the agricultural company Monsanto. Johnson's victory on Friday could set a massive precedent for thousands of other cases, claiming Monsanto's famous herbicide causes non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Jury said Monsanto should have warned users about the dangers of its Roundup and Ranger Pro weed killers. However, in a statement, parent company Bayer was quoted as saying, Bayer is confident, based on the strength of the science, the conclusions of regulators around the world and decades of experience, that glyphosate is safe for use and does not cause cancer when used according to the label. The company said it intends to appeal against the verdict. An Australian cancer lobby group is urging global chemical giant Monsanto to come clean on any potential links to cancer with one of its popular weed killers following the major lawsuit in the US. Glyphosate was introduced by Monsanto in 1974, but its patent expired in 2000 and now the chemical is sold by various manufacturers. In the US, more than 750 products contain it. Glyphosate use worldwide has risen almost 50-fold since 1996, when so-called Roundup-ready crops genetically engineered to resist glyphosate were introduced. But what exactly is glyphosate and how does it impact human health? During a recent discussion on our program at Hyde Park with other Deranas in the Variamuatta, Dr. Sarath Gunatilaka touched on the subject.
Just to have it clarified again, so glyphosate and glyphosate, weedicide, pesticide are two different
animals.
Okay, that's clarified.
That's right. So the Roundup or the glyphosate herbicide is very different from pure glyphosate. To give you a little analogy, if you put a little drop of pure glyphosate onto a leaf, it is just like putting a drop of water into a lotus leaf. It just slips off. But when you add these formulants into glyphosate, it makes glyphosate stick onto the leaf, and that is what really makes it into a herbicide. But the issue here is that when people talk about glyphosate, they are only talking about pure glyphosate. But really the herbicides contain a lot of other additional chemicals, or what we call adjuvants, that are now shown to be about 1,000 times more toxic or injurious to the human body than the pure glyphosate.
In Sri Lanka, where glyphosate was banned in 2014, only for it to be lifted on the 11th of July this year, has faced much criticism by various factions owing to its alleged harm to human health. Speaking to First at 9, the Bar Association of Sri Lanka announced that as there is no proper legal mechanism to ban the use of the weedicide, measures will be taken in the upcoming months to make a presentation to the government and stakeholders to revoke the Gazette notification lifting the ban.
Trade unions of railway services decided to call off their strike today, bringing an end to a trade union action which brought train services to a halt across 4 days. The move comes following a discussion held with President Maithripala Sirisena at his official residence in Polonnaruwa.
Several railway trade unions began the strike last Wednesday over the delay of the cabinet paper which they say would rectify salary anomalies of railway employees. Due to the strike being launched without prior notice, inconvenience commuters started remonstrating in an expression of their distress at the Fort Railway Station, leading to a tense situation. Following these developments, Police Special Task Force and riot police units were deployed at the Colombo Fort and Maradana railway stations. In this backdrop, Sri Lanka Transport Board and security forces provided a special bus service for train commuters. Retired train drivers were called by the government to run several trains and necessary security was provided by the police. Minister of Finance Mangala Samaravira and Subject Minister Nimal Siripala de Silva said the discussion would only be held if they call off the strike. With both sides holding their ground, President Maithripala Sirisena met with railway trade unions at his official residence in Polonnaruwa this morning. Secretary of the Railway Engineers Association, Indika Dodangoda, said that steps have been taken to suspend the strike upon the promise of the President, where the head of state has promised an immediate solution to their concerns. Meanwhile, Deputy Transport Superintendent V.S. Polvattage said it will take some time for the railway services to settle back to normal.
During the strike, we veered from our normal routine and conducted a separate train service. Due to that, train power sets, compartments and engines are placed at various locations and we need to place them back. So we urge the public not to panic in this regard.
Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe emphasises that democracy, which was violated during the previous government, has now been re-established in the country. The Premier made the remark at an event held in Nuwara today.
The first 404 houses built under the Indian Housing Project in Dansinane Estate in Pundaluoya in Nuwara were vested with plantation workers under the patronage of Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe and High Commissioner of India to Sri Lanka, Taranjit Singh Sandhu. Under the project, 1.2 million rupees was allocated for the construction of one
house. Today we declared open the Mahatma Gandhi Puram village. I express my gratitude to Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi for his support on constructing this village. We have ensured democracy in this country. Representatives of all media organizations here, except for the 2 organizations, will blame us this evening. But we won't kidnap them using white vans. That's the sort of media freedom we've given them. The country was in debt when we took over and we managed to pay off most of it, even with much difficulty. For that, we had to increase taxes and get blamed from the public. And that's why they cast their vote against us during the recent local authorities election. I would like to say that no matter what, we will ensure a better economy in the country.
Leader of the Janata Vimukti Peramuna, parliamentarian Arunara Kumara Dissanayake insists their policy will guarantee development in the country. Addressing an event in Godakavela today, the leader of the JVP said that their set of policies will be presented on the 1st of January next year.
Data and statistics show that even after 70 years, the main 2 parties of this country have not been able to develop this country. Recently, I heard Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe say that he will continue development work of this country until 2050. That is 32 years away. He is now 69 years old. He will be 101 years by then. This shows that the present leaders of the country cannot develop this nation. Ranil Wickremesinghe took the central bank into his own hands and appointed Arjuna Mahendran as its governor. After the robbery, it was Ranil Wickremesinghe who helped Arjuna Mahendran leave to Singapore. Therefore, this is a deal that took place at Temple Trees. Therefore, when we speak about politics of the country, it is one of the cheapest trades there is. JVP will unveil a policy that will help this country on the 1st of January.
The organizer of the All-Ireland Private Bus Owners Association, UK Kumaratna Renuka, insists that if steps are not taken to reduce traffic fines, a strike will be launched with effect from midnight on Wednesday. In the meantime, commending the move, a senior lecturer of the University of Colombo calls the government to focus on policies to control the importation of the vehicles while increasing the infrastructure facility.
Back in 2016, during the 2017 budget speech in Parliament, then Finance Minister Ravi Karnanayaka said that road accidents claim more and more lives daily and that most of the accidents are due to traffic violations. He proposed to increase fines charged for traffic offences and to increase the minimum fine to Rs 2,500. Sri Lanka Private Bus Owners Association, however, demanded the government to immediately withdraw the proposal to increase the minimum fine for traffic offences. Private bus drivers in Sri Lanka threatened to launch a strike as the government refused to give in to their demands and withdraw enhanced traffic fines for serious offences. Strikes were later called off following discussions with the then Finance Minister. Sri Lanka Police recently announced the implementation of enhanced traffic fines from the 15th of July, but the increases were way short of 25,000 rupees promised in last year's budget. Speeding will be fined 3,000 rupees irrespective of how fast the driver is above the speed limit. Earlier, the fine was at 1,000 rupees. Driving without a license earlier attracted a fine of 2,500 rupees and an underage driver was fined 5,000 rupees. But under the new system, neither will be given a spot fine and instead will be taken to court. The previous spot fine ticket listed 23 offences, but the new one will carry 33. It becomes mandatory to carry emission test certificate and non-compliance will result in a 500 rupee fine. The biggest percentage increase is for reversing an improper intake of fuel. Both attracted a fine of just 20 rupees, but from July 15th, it will go up by 4,900% to 1,000 rupees. Overloading buses, trucks and three-wheelers will attract a fine of rupees 500, up from 150 earlier. Not pleased with the increase in traffic fines, the organizer of the All-Ireland Private Bus Owners Association, UK Kumaratna Renuka, said a strike will be launched from midnight on Wednesday if steps are not taken to reduce the increased traffic fines. Given the manner in which the All-Ireland Private Bus Owners Association approached the fine hike, we contacted sociologist Dr. M.T.M. Mahiz to get his thoughts on the emerging pattern.
In Sri Lanka, every day we lose around 10 people by road accidents due to the careless driving and violation of the road rules and traffic rules. So in order to control this, we have to abide by a very tough rules and regulation. But in the meantime, I know that the drivers and the transport workers, they are going to collectively protest against this because there is an uncontrollable situation among these transport workers because they are having their own subculture and they try to go always against the prevailing rules. Government also need to take some other necessary steps more than increasing the fines and taxes on these things because we know that government has no proper policies regarding importing vehicles from the foreign countries. Government has to take some policy decisions to control the importations of the vehicles. Also, they have to increase the infrastructure facilities of the road development. This is a good move and good turnout to put down the accident rate in Sri Lanka, so which is way more dangerous than the terrorism and other things. In the meantime, that should not be a boomerang to the drivers and transport workers. So these are the things we have to consider in addition to the increase in the fines.
Inspector General of Police Pooja Jayasundara calls on all to get together to ensure the success of the ongoing development process in the country. He expressed these views while addressing the event in Kalaniya today.
Convocation ceremony of the Higher International Diploma of Communication was held under the auspices of Inspector General of Police Pooja Jayasundara today. The event was held at the University of Kalaniya.
We have to go with the speed, we have to go with the quantity, best quantity, but with the quality. This is what we need from the university and the Sri Lanka police. And what I need is the policemen and the women, if they say, and others as well. You learn, you achieved, you got the qualification, but not to confine to the certificate. You have to have a vision, mission and the strategy to get it implemented in the society, in your institution and to Mother Lanka at last. That is where we will be prestigious, professional and people's friendly. There is no specifically, there is a committee all together have to change with the attitude, the setup and the ongoing process of this country.
The traditional erection of Cup, a ceremony which marks the commencement of Asala festival of the Temple of the Sacred Tooth Relic in Kandy, was conducted this morning. With that, let's take a look at other stories making news across Sri Lanka.
The traditional cup erection ceremony marking the Asala festival of the Temple of the Sacred Tooth Relic in Kandy was conducted at the auspicious time of 6:02 this morning at the Natha, Pattini, Vishnu and Kataragama Devalas. An internal procession will parade centering the 4 Devalas until the 15th, and the first Kumbal procession will take to the streets of the Kandy on the 16th. The first Randoli procession will parade on the 21st, with the last Randoli procession due on the 25th. The series of processions will conclude on the 26th with the day procession. In the meantime, the final procession of the 68th Asala festival of the ancient Bellangvira temple paraded the streets last night. The Tusker Nadungamu Raja paraded the pinnacle. An explosion at 2 motor spare parts shops at the city of Badula destroyed both establishments. Our correspondent said one of the proprietors also succumbed in the incident. Patients and staff at the Kantale Base Hospital are severely inconvenienced owing to around 6 wasps' nets within the ward complex and doctors' quarters. Hospital staff said even though wildlife officials of Kantale was informed of the situation, a solution has not been forthcoming.
Let's now cross over to a short commercial break.
You are watching Sri Lanka's award-winning news channel, Derana 24/7.
Parliamentarian of the United National Freedom Alliance, Dr. Bandla Gunawardena, calls on the President to immediately put a halt to the tax concessions given in line with the free trade agreement signed with Singapore. Addressing a media briefing of the joint opposition held in Colombo today, the MP insisted that the Director General of Customs should be immediately given instructions towards this end.
Dr. Harshadi Silva said in Parliament that I must have bumped my head on a door and that's why I am opposed to the Sri Lanka Free Trade Agreement with Singapore. I wonder whether the President appointed a committee on it comprising of professors because I bumped my head. The Minister of Finance has issued a gazette to the Department of Customs instructing it to facilitate exchange of goods without duty under the Sri Lanka-Singapore FTA, and it's already underway. We call on the President on behalf of the country to instruct the Director General of Customs to halt tax concessions given through the 2 Gazette notifications which are issued pertaining to the FTA.
Market analysts expect a continued uptrend in the market in the benchmark index, but at a slow pace. During the week, the Osha Price Index edged down by 0.04%, while the S&P SL 20 decreased by 0.17%. For a detailed report on how the market will perform this week, we have Achudan Srirangan from First Capital Holdings.
A strong bullish investor sentiment has developed among market participants, which is likely to result in a continued uptrend in the benchmark index, but at a much slower pace. A strong valuation in our market, even in the comparison to a peer market, is result in continued foreign interest will remain strong, and that the buying interest in the local high net worth and retail investors are also likely to be slowly enter into the market.
On to another headline making news. A US space agency NASA launched its mission today to send a satellite closer to the sun than ever before. The Parker Solar Probe rocket lifted off from Cape Canaveral in Florida. The probe is said to become the fastest moving man-made object in history, and its data promises to crack long-standing mysteries about the sun's behavior.
The Parker Solar Probe took off this morning from the Kennedy Space Center in Florida after NASA was forced to postpone the launch yesterday. The Parker Solar Probe is the first spacecraft to be named after a living person, 91-year-old solar physicist Eugene Parker, who first described solar wind in 1958. The Delta IV Heavy rocket, which was carrying the probe, launched at 3:31 local time.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3,
2, 1, 0.
The launch came after a failed attempt the previous day when a last-minute alarm caused the agency to miss its 65-minute weather window.
3R68. Chamber pressures continue to look good. Chamber pressure on the core booster is throttling down to partial thrust mode.
To shield the probe from the sun's intense heat and radiation, the Parker probe is armed with a novel carbon composite shield. The $1.5 billion mission will study the sun's incredibly hot outer atmosphere called the corona, as well as the charged particles that flow off the star and into the solar system. The car-sized probe will utilize to Venus to try and achieve an orbit around the sun by helping to slow it down. Parker will enter the sun's atmosphere to sample conditions around our star reaching as far as 6.16 million kilometers from the sun's scorching surface. The gulf between the Parker's planned distance from the sun and the previous best effort is a staggering 36.88 million kilometers, as the mission of Helios 2 in 1976 got to within 43 million kilometers from the sun. The probe will also be the fastest human-made object ever, traveling around the sun at speeds of up to 690,000 kilometers per hour.
Let's now take a look at the emerging stories from across the globe.
The airline worker who stole an empty airplane from a Seattle airport yesterday once ran a bakery with his wife and enjoyed the benefits that came with his job to travel the world. Richard Russell was a 29-year-old man who worked for Horizon Airlines, a sister carrier of Alaska Airlines, as a ground service agent who helped baggage handlers. After making incredible maneuvers during a 90-minute flight, he crashed the plane in a sparsely populated area of the Ketron Island and was killed. Thousands of Romanians protested against corruption in Bucharest for a second day, running on yesterday, demanding the Social Democrat government's resignation. About 40,000 people gathered in front of government's offices in the capital, fewer than the 100,000 the previous night, shouting "Resignation, resignation," blowing vuvuzelas and waving Romanian and European Union flags. Trinidad-born British author V.S. Naipaul, who won the Nobel Prize for Literature in 2001, has died at his home in London aged 85. He began writing in the 1950s and won numerous coveted literary awards during his career, in which he wrote critically acclaimed novels such as A House for Mr. Biswas, In a Free State and A Bend in the River. Naipaul received a knighthood from Queen Elizabeth in 1989. Tibet's annual Shodan festival, also known as the Yogurt Banquet Festival, kicked off yesterday in Lhasa, the capital city of the autonomous region in southwest China. The unveiling of the massive Thangka painting of Buddha Sakyamuni, which measured 40 meters long and 37 meters wide, signaled the start of the annual festival.
Getting back to one of our headline-making news now, a Minister of Finance Mangala Samaraveera announced yet another fuel price hike in line with the government's fuel pricing formula on Friday. In a special media briefing on the matter, the minister highlighted uncertainty over Iranian oil as a factor in the price hike. Although there are no sanctions imposed on Iran's oil exports at present, what would the plight of Sri Lanka be in case sanctions were to be imposed? Venturing his thoughts on the matter for Minister of Petroleum, former Minister of Petroleum Chandima Wirakudi says the government has not done enough to mitigate global oil price fluctuations.
Despite pleas from key members of the international community, the first wave of US sanctions against Iran came into effect on Tuesday. Expecting the US to impose sanctions on its oil industry, Iran's defiant statement said that the US will not be able to stop its oil exports. US officials meanwhile urged allies around the world to cut all oil purchases from the world's fifth largest oil producer to zero by November. The US State Department also warned that firms which continue to do business with Tehran could risk punishment. Global economic experts strongly warn of ripple effects across the global economy because of these new sanctions. Many international media reports highlight how reimposed sanctions on Iranian oil industry could have a direct impact on Sri Lanka's closest neighbor, India. India is the second largest buyer of Iranian oil. It was in this backdrop that Sri Lankan Minister of Finance Mangala Samaraveera revealed the latest fuel price hike on Friday.
During the last few weeks, due to the crisis in the Middle East and Iran, the international fuel prices began increasing. By the 3rd of August, the fuel prices increased to the same amount it was on the 6th of July. Considering this, we are happy to say that prices of 92 octane along with auto diesel have not been revised. Octane 95 has been increased by just 2 rupees, while super diesel has been revised by just 1 rupee. The prices of fuel are still less than it was during the Rajapaksa regime.
The government insists that the newly introduced pricing formula facilitates local fuel prices to be on par with fluctuations of global fuel prices. Although Sri Lanka might not have a direct impact from the uncertainty surrounding Iranian oil industry, we will continue to be affected by impacts on the global oil industry.
Uncertainty in world oil prices has not been something new. The prices have been fluctuating right through. But the issue is the Sri Lankan government has not been able to take possible action to damage control. Now, for instance, the refinery that we have is 50 years old. During the time that I was holding the position, a proposal was approved to upgrade the existing refinery with a hydrocracker. But that has been thrown into the dustbin. Likewise, the unloading facility, there was not a proposal, the tender was to be finalized about the pipelines. That has also not been implemented. We had short-term, medium-term and long-term solutions for this issue. For a long-term solution, we had oil and natural gas exploration, an introduction of LNG to Sri Lanka. That has also not been made a reality. This government has not been able to implement what needs to be done and what can be done by a government in order to handle a situation where oil prices go up. And also we must be able to promote alternate energy. The energy has to be reasonably priced for a country to survive and develop. We are talking about investment promotion. No investor will come to Sri Lanka so long as the energy prices are skyrocketing.
Other than the pricing formula, do we have any other long-lasting alternatives to the issue? It's time for the government to ponder the matter, given that there are clear implications to our island when global powers collide.
Time for you to get the latest from the world of entertainment with our segment 70 Seconds of Entertainment.
Friends has been revealed as UK's most watched streaming show 14 years after its last episode aired on TV. Netflix UK added Friends in January, with subscribers able to binge watch all 10 seasons. Oscar-winning actor Casey Affleck for the first time has apologized for the unprofessional environment on the set of his film I'm Still Here. He was sued by 2 female crew members in 2010 for sexual harassment. Organizers of the Oscars announced a new award category, Popular Film, to recognize popular movies such as superhero movies. The new edition will come into effect in next year's Academy Awards ceremony. Fans of Idris Elba was thrilled this week after speculation that he might be cast as the next James Bond. But their joy was short-lived, with director Antoine Fuqua confirming the rumors to be inaccurate. Taylor Swift's ongoing Reputation tour has garnered praise from both critics and fans as the near-perfect concert tour of the year. Camila Cabello and Charli XCX have joined Taylor for the opening acts. But Bryan Adams' surprise appearance in the concert in Toronto has been called one of the biggest highlights of the tour.
Well, that's just 70 seconds of entertainment, but we have more of that coming up right after the news. Our new program, Showbiz Tonight, will air tonight after First at 9, and Mahish is here to tell us as to what's coming on his show. Mahish?
Thanks so much, Chang. Well, we are indeed counting down to the #1 movie of this week. The question is whether Tom Cruise's Mission Impossible Fallout be able to retain the #1 position, or will it lose to Disney's new entrant? All that and much more coming right up after First at 9 on Showbiz Tonight. Stick around for that.
Of course, we have more here on First at 9. We will join you right after this break.
You are watching Sri Lanka's premier news channel, Other Derana 24/7.
And with that, we conclude this edition of First at 9. Thank you for joining us and have a pleasant evening.